There we go. Now I am on and cooking with grease. Okay, so again, hit the like, hit the share, tag someone on in the room so we can have the discussion on how to properly respond to suicidal threats and attempts. We see, and I know if you're on here, you know someone or have seen it circulating, or especially in the last month, it's been almost a month where it's almost like it's been attempt after attempt or suicide after suicide that we have been seeing. And hey, Diamond, and my heart is heavy because when I see someone, a life that is lost, gone too soon, especially at 15 and 12 and 13, the younger, I don't, it doesn't matter how old they are. I know that that is a life that didn't get the opportunity to fulfill God's purpose. And that is alarming to me. That's a life taken too soon. That is children that will not be birthed through them if they didn't have children. That is a whole lot of stuff that just goes missing out of the world, off the world, or out of the world, or however you want to say it, because that life is no longer here. Though other lives that's connected to it, that's going to be impacted, communities that's connected to it that will be impacted. So this is something that we need to pay attention to. Like, we don't need to see these things come across our feed and cross the news and us not do something about it, or at least be prepared to do our part if it was to happen to us. So how do you handle or properly respond to a suicidal attempt or threat? Well, let's go back. I was scrolling through Facebook last night and I saw someone say, well, how do you know? Like, how do you know when someone is struggling? And to be honest with you, a lot of times you may not know. But here's the thing: the research shows and is very clear that when someone attempts suicide or has threatened suicide in some way, they show signs. There are signs. And a lot of times, and I'm speaking in the Black community because I know that's who I am, that's what I can represent. Sometimes we miss it, we dismiss it, we don't pay attention when people are saying things. I know there are songs out, and I know because I've heard these songs that normalizes threatening suicide or normalizing just going to killing yourself. Like, these songs are saying these things. And so a lot of times, because we have these songs that are saying this, sometimes we don't pay attention to it, especially some in the Black community. When we don't pay attention to it, then we don't know when to take it serious and when not to take it serious. But I hope that you will leave this live today and know how you can properly respond when someone says, hey, I think, I just rather not be here anymore. Because that's a threat. That's a threat when someone says that, or when someone actually proceeds to attempt to complete suicide. And complete suicide is the correct term. Die by suicide is another term that we use, and we can say kill yourself according to the research. But I want us to properly know how to use these terms when we're saying it. Okay, so here's some warning signs, and this is straight from the Suicide Prevention Line. I have it linked there if you would like to go through there and look at the resources, because the key to this, guys, is for us to be educated on what to do, on what to look out for, because you never know when you're talking to a friend and they're in crisis, and they may not come out and tell you, hey, I'm going to go home, or they may not make a suicide note. They may not, but there are some signs that you can look for, or that you can be aware of, that when they say these things, that you can just blatantly ask them, hey, have you ever thought about harming yourself? You can ask them that as a friend, as a family member, as a pastor, as a whatever role you're in. If you come in contact with people, then you can blatantly ask that, and then after today, you will know how to respond should they respond to you that they are. Okay, so some of the warning signs. Talking about wanting to die or kill themselves. That is a warning sign. Looking for a way to kill themselves, like searching online or buying a gun or looking for pills, or those are warning signs that they are looking or trying to kill themselves. Talking about feeling hopeless or having no reason to live. I don't have anything to live for. Like, what am I here for? I don't really have a purpose. I don't feel like I don't even know why I was born. Like, those things we may hear people talk about and just be like, oh, what, they just trying to figure out who they are. They're just trying to figure out their life and, why they're here, their purpose. We don't need to let them have those conversations or say things like that and us not be aware that some other things may be going on with them. They're talking about feeling trapped or in an unbearable situation. So feeling like they have no way out. They don't have they can see no other way out other than leaving this world. So, talking about being a burden to other people, we see this a lot. I know I experience this sometimes the older community or those who have disabilities or feel like they don't have anything to offer other people. So they feel like they're a burden on other people. And the only way to remedy that is to just not be here anymore. So increasing the use of alcohol or drug use. Now, I know I grew up with a lot of people who use drugs and alcohol heavily. Um, and sometimes we ignore the fact that when people use drugs and alcohol, whether it's heavily or whether it's not heavily, that is a problem. People don't use drugs and alcohol just for the sake of it. No, they use drugs and alcohol to escape. And typically, when people use alcohol, that is a sign that they're struggling with some kind of depression, because that's typically what alcohol does. And depression, anxiety, those are signs that there is something deeper going on with this person. It's not just about them using drugs and alcohol. It is about them trying to escape and trying to find routes to escape. And it's the same way with here it says drugs and alcohol, but we're talking about sex. People can escape from sex using being over promiscuous and being over sexualized. Like those are issues, those are things, signs that something is going on with this person. Sex, video gaming. I'm trying to think of other escape things that people do now. I know a lot of people that play video games, like all of that. Pornography, all of those are being addicted to pornography. All of those are means of escape, and clues that there is something going on with people. Now I know we're in a society that glorify OnlyFans and looking at pornography. Like I've seen posts where people glorify looking at pornography and all that. But these are signs that something is going on with a person. If you are addicted to this stuff, it is a sign that something is going on with you. And we don't need to ignore that. So, talking about being a burden to other people, increasing the use of alcohol or drugs, acting anxious or agitated, behaving recklessly. Now, I was talking to a person one day, and it's been some years ago, and they said I was in the car with someone, and it was like they were intentionally just running red lights, and it's like they were playing games with the car, like they were trying to be reckless about it. And I had to take a step back because it took me a while. Now I'm a therapist, and I had to take a step back and was like, wait a minute. So they're behaving recklessly. They're driving over 90 and 100 miles on purpose. They're running red lights and running the risk of, driving dangerously where they can injure themselves or someone else. No, this is a sign that this person has no reason to live. And we do not ignore that. We don't ignore that. So if your child come to you and they say something like, hey, I've so and so been running red lights, I don't like driving with them, because that is a clue something else may be going on with that person. So don't ignore it. Sleeping too little or too much. Sleeping too much could be a sign of, that person may be struggling with depression. People that are struggling with depression, they often sleep a lot. They sleep at all kind of crazy times of the day. They just don't have any energy. They feel like they may not want to get up. They may go days without showering. They may go days without taking care of themselves. Their hair may be a mess. And then there are people who are functioning that are functioning depression, and they get up and do what they got to do, but they're agitated and they're irritated and they don't like being around people and they're pushing people away. All of those are signs that they may be struggling with some depression. And then sleeping too little, then we're going over into anxiety. Like, why are you sleeping too little? Are you up worried? Are you concerned about, some things that may be going on around you? Or are you concerned about things that really may or may not happen? Like, I knew someone who would always be afraid that someone's going to come through the window and get them. that is a sign that there's some anxiety, that there's some other stuff going on there. Because who normally worries about people coming into the window unless you've had that happen before? Like, it could be a very real fear if you know someone that has happened to, or have had that happen to before. But what if that ain't never happened to you, or if that had never happened to someone else that you know? Guys, again, if you are coming into the room, thank you so much for being here. I'm Dr. Tiffany. I don't even think I introduced who I was. I just kind of came in firing because this is something that's really heavy on my heart. But if you are in the room, hey, welcome. I'm Dr. Tiffany Ross. I'm a therapist and a relationship expert, and I work with women. But here today we're talking about suicide and how to properly respond to suicidal threats and attempts. So if you are in the room, please make sure that you share this with someone that you know. Tag someone on in the room so they can get this. They may not be able to watch it now, but they can go back and watch the replay. I'll keep all the replays up because I want people to know how to properly respond. Okay, so where was I? Sleeping too little or too much. Then the next one is withdrawing or isolating themselves. So if you know someone that just kind of isolate, then that's a warning sign that there may be some other stuff going on there. And how do we handle that? Like, how do you handle that when someone you know is beginning to isolate and away from you? Like, how do you handle that? Well, you pick up the phone, you send a text, you call them. If they not responding, then you pick up the phone, you dial 911 or call your local authorities, and you can do what we call a welfare check. You can send the authorities over there to check on them, because you don't know. We don't know if they're not responding, they're isolating, they're not responding to texts and calls and all that from anyone. Then we can pick up the phone, call the police, and send them over there. Hey, I haven't heard from so and so in a long time. We've tried to contact them in the last 24 hours. They're not responding. Will you go over there, send an officer over there to check on them? That is what we call a welfare check. And you can send a welfare check on to a person. And so what if they'll be mad at you? It's better than being mad at you than something happening to them, and you know that there's something that you could have done to have saved their life or to have prevented it. So look, so let them be mad. Send someone over there to check on them. They're isolating, they're not responding. Send someone over there to check on them. Send an authority over there to check on them that is trained to know how to handle it. So I'm showing rage or talking about seeking revenge, anger. All of these are warning signs of suicide. And then extreme mood swings. So being extremely happy one minute, and then being extremely sad and depressed the next minute. Like those unbalanced mood swings, that's a sign that something else is going on, and it could be a warning sign of depression or the warning sign of suicide. So how do you handle when someone has threatened suicide? Someone says to you, hey, I don't want to be here anymore, or I think, I just rather not even be, like, they, and there are cunning ways that people say these things that we sometimes catch and sometimes we don't. They don't all right say, hey, I want to kill myself. They may not say that. They may just say, I don't feel like I have anything to live for. That's a that's a suicidal threat. That's something that we don't take lightly. Or I just can't wait. And here's another one. I just can't wait. If the Lord took me right now, I knew I was in a group with someone, and I was there for another reason. We was all there for another reason. But the lady said, she said, I think about going to heaven every day. So everybody else in the group, because they wasn't trained, trained to catch these things, but thank God I was. They went on and was like, yeah, just kind of understanding the lady, she's going through a whole lot. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. That's a sign. If you think about dying every day, if you think about going to heaven to see your father every day, I want to see my heavenly father, but I know there's some greater works for me to do here on earth, and there's some greater works for you to do here on earth. So I don't think about dying every day. And if you know someone who says that they think about dying every day, that's a threat. That's a threat. So when a person says these things to you, they're threatening suicide, whether they do verbally, whether they're leaving notes. Excuse me, guys, I got some cold stuff going on, so excuse me. Whether they're leaving notes or whether they're telling friends and you hear about it from someone else, how do you handle it? Number one, you do not ignore it. You do not ignore it. We know people are going through, we're all going through. Like with COVID, when COVID hit in 2020, as something happened with the, like, people were struggling already with mental illness and anxiety, depression, and all this. People were struggling already. But 2020, something about COVID that seemed to increase that. The research shows that over it was like over a 90% increase in people diagnosed and seeking services for depression and anxiety. So it was something about being, of course, being afraid of losing your life and contracting a disease and not knowing how it was going to respond to you and how it was going to respond to loved ones if they got in contact with it, or if you were struggling with the illness and was worried about, well, what if I get this what if I get COVID-19? Like, how am I going to live? And we know people. I have had loved ones that have died from COVID-19. So the weight of what was going on in the world alone was a lot. It has been a lot. It has been a lot. And it has been even worse for people who have not had the proper tools to really deal with it. So we don't ignore. That's number one. We do not ignore when a person threatens suicide or threatens to make an attempt. We don't ignore it. Then the second thing that we do when someone says this is you can downright ask them, well, do you how would you do it? You can ask them that. You can ask them, well, how would you do it? And here's why you want to ask them that. Because you want to know, if they leave your presence, they're going to do this right now, and you need to call 911 instantly. Or if they were like, well, I'll just think about it sometimes. Well, how do you handle that? Here's what you do. You still contact 911. If you're a mental health professional or medical health professional, you have been trained, or you should be trained. If you haven't been trained, I'm working on something right now with for businesses and organizations on teaching them how to respond to mental illness in the workplace. So contact me so that I can invite you. I have a free 3-day workshop coming up in March. Contact me so that I can get you on our mailing list so that you can be reminded when that's going out. But if you are just an everyday person and you're not trained to do these things, if someone threatens suicide, then you call 911. You call 911, you call the local authorities, you can call teachers. Teachers are really good. They're trained on how to handle this. Principals are trained on how to handle this. They know what to do. You can call medical professionals, a nurse, a doctor, or someone. They are trained on how to handle it. So the nearest authority, I don't care if it's a dentist. Dentists are trained on how to handle these things. Contact someone that you know that can better handle them. If you are a child, if you are underage and you don't really know what you can do, if your friend is saying these things to you, then you go tell your parent. You go tell your parent. Your parent, who should be watching or is watching at this particular time, at that point would contact an authority, a police officer, 911, the nearest ER. Take them to the nearest ER. You take them to the nearest ER. So you, as a layperson, you're not trained to handle it. So you get to an authority. Get to the latest mental health professional, but you do not ignore it. And I think that has been the issue, is that when people say these things, people are ignoring it, or the other person saying it may downplay it. And so that tells our mind to ignore it, or maybe they weren't really taking serious. But you take it serious. Even if they're not taking it serious, you take it serious. So get to the nearest authority and make a report. I think this person is threatening to commit suicide. That's the language that you can use. And then it's out of your hands. Now, I want you to recognize this too, because I think a lot of people can get caught, especially people who have a heart for people, especially if it's your loved one, it's your friend, you want to help them, or you feel like you can save them. You can't. Let me go ahead on and help you right now. It is not your role. It is not your job to save them. You can't pull them out of whatever slump that they're in or whatever thinking. That's not your job. That's not your role. But you can be present and you can intervene. You can be the hands and feet to help them get the help that they need by people that are trained to handle these things. So I just wanted to help somebody, because I know I've known people to step in that role. I was like, I'm just going to stay there with them. Now, what if this person threatens and you are in the house with them? How do you handle that? I feel like I need to go there too. How do you handle when someone's in the house and they've threatened suicide? Number one, again, you call a professional, and then you begin to remove every item that is in your house that they can harm themselves with. Sometimes, if it's not, they may go to the hospital, and the hospital may put them on what we call a 24-hour hold to just kind of assess them. And at that point, they may release them. But what do you do when you come home? Like, how, if they come home, how do you handle that? Well, you begin to remove items that they can use to harm themselves until they're in a much better place. And then you seek help, get them with a therapist so they can work out whatever's going on with them in therapy in the office with a therapist properly. That's how you can handle it if they live with you, or if they're close to you, or if you have access, or if you know someone who this is going, who has someone who's threatened, then you can share this with them. Share, this is how you handle it. Then you can share the suicide prevention line. Like, go to the suicide prevention line and be aware of these things yourself. So that, because you never know when you need them, you never know when someone else will need them. So how do you handle when someone has attempted suicide? Here's where we are in today's society, because I know a lot of us watching, if you are in Mississippi, you have already heard about the young lady who jumped off the bridge in Jackson yesterday. You have already heard about this, or may have known someone who has mentioned it, and you may not know. And if you don't know, you know now. How do you handle when you know someone who has attempted suicide? You know they're in the hospital or they're somewhere getting help. Well, what is your part? What can you do? Number one, you don't share it across social media. I know the video that has gone around. I've bypassed some videos because I just refuse to watch. It's traumatic to watch stuff like that. It's traumatic. It's damaging. It can be damaging to your mental health. It's there's a term called secondary trauma, where you experience symptoms of trauma just by watching or being exposed to it, not directly exposed, but secondarily exposed, like through a video or through a picture. These things can trigger a trauma response in you too, and you'd be somewhere struggling, trying to figure out what's going on with me. Well, you done been exposed to something traumatic and that you need to get help from just by sharing the video, watching the video. Do not watch the video, guys. If you see the video, do not watch the video. You can comment up underneath it. Rest in peace. So sorry for the loss of this family's young lady. Please comment sensitive things. If you don't know what to comment, don't comment anything, because you just never know. There are a lot of people hurting behind this. There are whole schools that are hurting, friends that are hurting, families that are hurting. So if you don't know the proper response, then no response is the best response. You can say your prayer and move on, but don't share the video. Please don't share the video. It's traumatic to watch. I don't know why Facebook won't even flag it and take it down. They should, because it's inappropriate. Children are on Facebook that are exposed to this. There are people that are already dealing with issues that are watching this or could watch this and could further damage their own mental health. So do not share the video. Don't watch the video. Don't watch the video. I know people, saw people like, I haven't even seen the video. Can you share with me? No, don't share the video. It's traumatic. You're setting yourself up for being exposed to trauma, something traumatic. And you could vicariously be diagnosed with secondary trauma just by watching it. So please don't watch it. It's graphic. Don't watch it. So that's how you can respond. Then the second way I said to respond is being watchful with what you say, using the correct language. Remember, it's die by suicide, completed suicide, loss of a life is another good one. And you can say kill themselves, but that's to me that's a little harsh. But they, that you can say that, but that's a little harsh, because consider their families are watching, and and all this stuff. So we say complete suicide. And then the next way that you can handle it is actually by paying attention to yourself. Pay attention to yourself. Now remember, none of these include you trying to rescue nobody else, because that's not your job unless you're a therapist and a medical professional. You're trained to handle other people. Most of us are not. So none of this includes you rescuing anyone else. But you can be there for someone who may be struggling, especially if they were directly impacted. You can kind of watch them, be watchful for them, check on them, make sure that they're doing okay, because sometimes this could trigger other people to do the same thing. It could trigger other family members. I know the research shows that when a family member, a close family member, dies by suicide, then it increases the chances for their children to also do the same. So in cases like that, then we watch them. We make sure that we get the children the proper help that they need. We make sure that we're supporting them the right way, and being there and just picking up the phone and checking. And I said this on one of my other lives when we were talking about depression and suicide. So make sure you go back and watch the other live. When someone pops up in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit, check on them. It's it takes 2 seconds to pick up your phone and send a text and just say, "Hey, you were on my mind. Just wanted to check on you." Or, "Hey, I thought about this song, thought about this scripture, thought about this book, thought about this devotional, and I wanted to share this with you." Those are moments that I feel like those are God moments that God is putting people in our heart for a reason. One, he may be testing your obedience, but two, it may be something that that person needs from you. So if they are in your heart, if they're in your mind, it's okay. Reach out. Reach out. They may need you at that moment. They may need what's inside of you at that moment. So reach out to them. So that's how another way that we can respond is by being sensitive to the other people that are left here, that are around us, that are still here, that may still be hurting. If you are hurting, being watchful for yourself, making sure that you're not exhibiting some of these warning signs, or if you yourself are struggling with depression or anxiety that has not been diagnosed, or has not been treated or not under treatment, I would encourage you to reach out and find you a mental health professional, find you a counselor. Psychologytoday.com is a really good resource with finding counselors that are in your area. Or if you say, "Well, I really can't afford to see a counselor." Well, there are centers called, in Mississippi, there's a Region 8. So they're community mental health centers that offer reduced prices. If you're close to a university, most university have counseling and psychology programs that will allow students to see clients. And usually those services are extremely reduced. Like, I know here in Hattiesburg, when I was in school, it was like $5 per session for a sliding fee scale, because you were being seen by students, but these students are supervised by licensed and trained supervisors and therapists. So they're not out there alone. But however you need to get help, and this is my thing, get help. We go see doctors. We break our leg, we go see doctors. We stay in physical therapy until we are healed. But something about the mental health that we feel like, "Oh, I'll be okay. I'll just get over it." Sometimes you don't get over it. Sometimes you're not okay. So we need to normalize going and seek help with mental health, just like we normalize going to see a doctor when we're hurting. Okay, so I think I kind of went over those. I'll take questions. So if anyone have any questions, if you were watching on StreamYard, and you have to give StreamYard permission. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll take questions. I may have to go back and watch those. I don't know if they'll pop up. If you are watching on Facebook, I have my comments open here on my phone, so I'll be able to see you for the most part. But I know this is a pretty sensitive topic, so a lot of people may not have questions that they want to say on a live, and that's okay. But you can message me privately. I'll go back and make sure that I check the message threads on these videos in case I miss someone, because I don't want to miss someone. But I do know that there's a lot going on in the world, and we need to be aware on how to handle these situations properly. Not that they so that they won't happen, because chances are they will happen. But how do we respond when they do happen? And with suicide, sadly to say, this is the season that suicides tend to increase. And so, in order for us to save a life, we have to know how we can properly respond. So I hope that you guys have taken something away from this. Thank you so much for joining on today. Again, you have time to share this. You have time to like it. You have time to tag someone in that needs this. And again, if you are a business owner, please contact me. I will be doing a training called Breaking the Silence on Mental Illness, breaking the silence on mental illness, because we need to normalize it. The role is to start normalizing seeking mental health, or seeking or prioritizing our mental wellness, just like we prioritize our physical wellness. That is the goal. So if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, know a business owner, tag them in this, and share. Like if you know someone that's a friend or a family member that's a business owner, you have connections to them, well then and tell them, hey, Dr. Tiffany is doing a Breaking the Silence on mental illness 3-day workshop on next month. Why don't you sign up? Reach out to her so you can sign up. I'll be posting links in the coming days. I already have it all set up to roll out. We're getting ready to roll it out next week. So yeah, when these things happen, you see these things come across your feed, sign up for them or tag people that you know that can use the information. I love you guys so much. I don't see any questions. You guys have a fantastic day. If I can help you, please, please, please reach out to me. Suicide Prevention Line, if you're on Facebook, I have it tagged in that video. If not, then it's, if you know someone who is struggling with suicide or who have shown some of these risk factors or some of these signs, then the Suicide Prevention Line is an excellent resource. Hold on, let me see if I can get it. It's 1-800-273-TALK, TALK, or 1-800-273-8255. And then there's another one. If you know someone who's just struggling, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. If they're struggling with life, they don't, there's all kind of resources out there. Suicide is for strictly suicide. But if you know someone who's just going through, having a hard time, and just needs someone to talk to, they don't really know how to handle a particular situation, then text home. And if someone who is watching can put this in the description box for me, or could put it in comments so other people can see it, I may be able to do it on StreamYard. You can text home, HOME, to 741-741. And that is the crisis helpline. So that's, you can open your text box and text home. And this is for anyone. If you're just having a hard time, you just need someone to talk. It's actually broken down. Like they'll break it down into categories. Or if you feel like you're struggling with depression, suicide, bipolar, you just lost someone, it's broken down into categories that you can talk to a trained crisis counselor to help you through that moment, and to actually get you to the next steps of what you can do to begin getting some help. So it's text home, HOME, to 741-741, or the Suicide Prevention Line. Let's see, it's 1-800-273. I'm typing it for everyone here. TALK, or 8255. So you guys have a wonderful day. Did I send that? Yes, I did. Okay, so you guys have a wonderful day. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. I will talk to you later. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me.